Hey, Crime Chronicles! For a moment, let's imagine one of the worst days in our life. Now, for a moment, let's assume that day never ends. That's the reality of kidnapping victims. These are all distinct incidents, but they all have one thing in common: the pain that the victims, along with their loved ones, went through. In this video, we'll explore 5 chilling kidnapping cases and their unsettling outcomes. We'll examine the specifics of each case, the aftermath of the kidnapping, and the societal repercussions of these incidents. So if you want to discover more about these terrifying incidents, this video is for you. Let's get started. Our first chilling kidnapping case is the Lindbergh Baby kidnapping. The Lindbergh Baby kidnapping was a crime involving the kidnapping and murder of Charles Lindbergh Jr., the 20-month-old son of aviator Charles Lindbergh. On March 1, 1932, the kidnappers abducted the child and left a ransom note demanding $50,000. The Lindbergh baby was discovered missing by Betty Go, the child's nanny, about an hour later. The Lindberghs notified the local authorities, who ceded control of the investigation to the New Jersey State Police. A search of the crime scene uncovered the ransom note and footprints in the nursery. As the ransom note was received, a cat-and-mouse game ensued, with Condon acting as an intermediary between the Lindberghs and the kidnappers. On April 2nd, Condon negotiated with the kidnappers to agree to the original ransom of $50,000 in exchange for the location of the Lindbergh baby. The kidnappers took the money, primarily gold certificates, and gave Condon a note that the child could be found on a boat called the Nellie near Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. The Lindbergh baby's body was found less than 5 miles from the Lindbergh home, and an autopsy found that the child had been killed by a blow to the head during or shortly after the kidnapping. The U.S. Bureau of Investigation, now the Federal Bureau of Investigation, initially focused on Condon and the Lindbergh household staff, but no concrete leads emerged. The case against Bruno Hauptmann was indicted for the murder of Charles A. Lindbergh Jr., and the jury returned a guilty verdict on February 13, 1935. Hauptmann was executed by electric chair on April 3, 1936, denying any involvement in the crime. Let's move on to the second case on our list. It's the Patty Hearst kidnapping. The kidnapping of Patty Hearst remains one of the most bizarre and closely studied cases of kidnapping in FBI history. On February 4, 1974, a gang of men and women knocked on Patty Hearst's apartment door and kidnapped her, drove away with Patty in the luggage compartment of their car, and beat up her fiancé. The Symbionese Liberation Army abducted Patty Hearst, a journalist from a wealthy family intending to abolish the capitalist state. The SLA held her blindfolded for 2 months, releasing records and demanding food contributions. Patty was brainwashed and became an accomplice to their revolutionary goals, suffering physical, psychological, and sexual abuse. She was exposed to radical beliefs and forced to record messages that would hurt her loved ones. After the SLA released a tape claiming she joined the SLA's fight, Patty denied being brainwashed and claimed she was a soldier of the People's Army. The FBI launched a massive search to find Hearst and stop the SLA. On May 16, 1974, SLA members were caught stealing ammunition from the local store in Los Angeles, resulting in a shootout, resulting in the death of 6 SLA members. Hearst fled across the country to avoid capture, but was eventually found guilty and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Despite serving 2 years in prison, President Carter commuted her sentence, which was later pardoned by President Bill Clinton. After her release, Hearst became an actress and married her former bodyguard Bernard Shaw, with whom she now has 2 children. Do you want to know the third kidnapping case on our list? Before moving forward, make sure that you've subscribed and pressed the bell icon. Jaycee Dugard was taken as she went to the bus stop in South Lake Tahoe on June 10, 1991, by Philip Garrido and his wife Nancy Garrido. When she was imprisoned at the Garrido home, she was just 11 years old. Jaycee was subjected to horrible suffering at the hands of the Garridos for the following 18 years. During her imprisonment, she was raped repeatedly and gave birth to 2 children, the first at the age of 14 and the second at the age of 17, all while being held in a makeshift dungeon in the Garridos' garden in Antioch, California. Jaycee's ordeal ended in August 2009. A Stolen Life, a memoir about her period in captivity, was released in 2011. Jaycee then released another book in 2017 on the pleasures and hardships that followed her captivity. The title of that book was Freedom, My Book of Firsts. Here is the fourth disturbing kidnapping case, which is going to shock you. The Adam Walsh kidnapping. Adam Walsh, the 6-year-old son of John and Reve Walsh, was kidnapped on July 27, 1981. What made this incident so scary was that it could have occurred to anybody at a department store while Reve had been gone for barely a second. No one could find the missing toddler after exploring the region. Adam was killed. His severed head was discovered 2 weeks later, but his body was never located. Otto Stuhl, a Florida man, confessed to the murder in 1983, but later recanted and was never prosecuted. Stuhl died in jail in 1996 while serving time for prior killings. However, it was established in 2008 that he was the murderer, and the case was declared closed. In his anguish, John Walsh founded the television show America's Most Wanted in 1988 to aid parents who were going through the same thing he was, as well as the Adam Walsh Child Resource Center and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act of 2006 was also inspired by the case, which established a more comprehensive and accessible countrywide database of convicted sex offenders, raised punishments for crimes against children, and established the National Child Abuse Registry. The Adam Walsh Reauthorization Act of 2016 provided further funds for these efforts, and it was adopted on October 7, 2016, along with many other similar acts as part of the wider Survivors' Bill of Rights Act of 2016. The fifth and the last kidnapping case for the day, the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. On June 5, 2002, Mary Catherine Smart heard a male voice threatening her sister, Elizabeth, and woke up to find her missing. The Smart family called 911 and searched the house, finding no sign of Elizabeth. The abductor, Brian David Mitchell, had entered through an unlocked window in the kitchen and crawled through. The family was renovating their home and offered a $250,000 reward for anyone who could provide information leading to Elizabeth's safe return. Abductors Brian David Mitchell and his wife, Wanda Barzy, abducted Elizabeth, who was dragged through the forest to a campsite. Mitchell planned to take Elizabeth as his second wife, following the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints tradition of polygamy. The Smart family decided to take matters into their own hands and contacted John Walsh, who dedicated a new segment of America's Most Wanted to update the public on Elizabeth's case. The Smart family was shocked to learn that Elizabeth had been found alive. They were charged with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated burglary, and sexual assault. Mitchell and Barzy were ruled incompetent to stand trial several times, but were eventually convicted and sentenced to life in federal prison in May 2011. Since returning home safely, Elizabeth has become an advocate for missing children and victims of sexual abuse. She has also advocated for more comprehensive sex education and believes that her upbringing made her worthless once she was raped. Elizabeth Smart's book explores the feeling of no worth and value in life. That concludes our examination of 5 terrifying kidnapping incidents and their disturbing results. If you're ever in a scenario where you believe that you may be abducted, it's critical to remain cool and know that you're not alone. Some individuals can assist you, and resources are accessible to you. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening exploration. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay tuned with Crime Chronicles.